Twitter, now X, has become the kind of fulcrum for many of these views to become normalized, that even a few years ago, when it was under a different ownership model, it was difficult to see because these sorts of posts and these sorts of ideas were not allowed on a platform. Now they are being diffused down from the very, very top itself, from Musk himself, and it is a big, big problem.
Well, you know, Tommy Robinson, under previous ownership, was banned from Twitter. Elon Musk has restored Tommy Robinson's account to Twitter because he thinks that anyone can express whatever they like. It's so easy to spread falsehood, to spread misinformation. It's bloody difficult to get it back and say, that is not true, what you're saying. And I think it's also, I think that social media is one very important aspect of it. And I think what's happened on Twitter has been appalling. It's just, as you say, there are times when you think you are wading in a sewer and it's just noxious and obnoxious.
And let me also say to large social media companies and those who run them, violent disorder clearly whipped up online, that is also a crime. It's happening on your premises, and the law must be upheld everywhere. That is the single most important duty of government. Service rests on security, and we will take all necessary action to keep our streets safe.
Elon Musk has been tweeting over the past few days about your response to this crisis, about what's been going on. He's claimed that civil war in the UK is inevitable. He is a powerful voice. A lot of people follow him on Twitter. Are you worried about his impact, or might he have a point about some of the things he's saying?
My focus is on ensuring that our communities are safe. That is my sole focus. And I think it's very important for us all to support the police in what they're doing. I went up to Southport to speak to some of the police who had been the first responders to the terrible attack that happened. They described the scene to me and what they had to deal with when those girls were attacked. Those same officers were then attacked on their own streets later the same day. The same officers who had been the first responders. Our first duty is to support the police in a difficult exercise that they are engaged in, keeping us safe.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. So we got to talk about the full-blown meltdown from the mainstream liberal media over Elon Musk chiming in on what is happening in the UK, okay? Because the UK has become a country that, in my opinion, is a warning to the United States in regards to what we will become if we continue to allow Democrats to gain power in this country, especially with this far left ticket that we currently have from the Democrats. What you see happening in the UK is definitely coming to the United States. Okay, I'm just keeping it all the way 100 with you.
Well, next to the United Kingdom, where far-right rhetoric has fueled the flame of racial hatred, triggering riots across the country. A tragic stabbing that saw 3 young girls killed last month. As the community was still grieving, misinformation began to spread on social media, claiming that the suspect was a Muslim refugee. The suspect currently is in custody, was born in Wales to Rwandan parents. Hey, Nish and Coco, thank you so much for joining the program. Sadly, this is a story that hasn't gotten as much media attention here in the United States, if for no other reason than we're in the midst of the presidential election season and obviously a lot of other international coverage. So set the scene for us, Nish, if you can, just the impact that this has had on the country there, and particularly with minority communities over the past few days.
I think it's been a terrifying week for minority communities. I think, the WhatsApp groups are filled with very concerned people. These are not, there's this phrase that keeps getting stewed around about people's legitimate concerns about immigration. And these are not legitimate concerns. These are people on the streets explicitly chanting racist slogans.
And that is the main point of this video, okay? Because, again, as I mentioned, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, they're socialists, okay? They have an actual socialist ticket. We're not talking about socialist light, okay, like Obama, right? No. like they're actually socialists. And you know who's running the UK right now? The new prime minister, Keir Starmer, who is actually a socialist. Okay, and socialists do not believe in free speech.
I think it definitely presents a massive challenge for Keir Starmer, and Keir Starmer has sort of run on a platform of being strong on law and order. He is a former prosecutor, and that's a big part of the record that he ran on for Prime Minister. He has now come out and made a sort of unequivocal statement condemning what he called the kind of thuggery, the far-right thuggery of a lot of these groups. And he's also warned that there'll be consequences, not just for the people participating in the riots, but for the people whipping up violence online. The challenge that presents is the challenge that is presented to so many governments around the world, which is how do you regulate these unaccountable tech platforms? You know, the website formerly known as Twitter is owned by Elon Musk, who not only has continued to platform hard right figures that under its previous ownership Twitter actually suspended, but has himself been stoking the fires that are burning across my country at the moment, making comments on the inevitability of a civil war.
This is why the socialists have a problem with Elon Musk, who bought Twitter/X, made it a free speech platform, and now they are blaming Elon Musk for the unrest that is happening in the UK over the immigration policies of Britain and basically most of Europe, in which, again, they are allowing mass immigrants into the country, okay, into these countries, into the continent, and they are changing things in ways that, again, the people who are already there, right, the citizens don't really like. And again, they are going after Elon Musk for this. There's a full-blown meltdown over the fact that Elon Musk doesn't want to censor more on X. Take a look.
Well, Elon Musk is certainly not intimidated. He continues to speak out, particularly on what's happening in the UK right now, much to the frustration of the elites. It all started when Elon Musk said that what we're seeing with rioting in the UK was inevitable and that civil war is probably likely because of unchecked immigration. For that, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, the Justice Minister, they all attacked Elon Musk and said he should pull his head in, but he hasn't. Have a look at some of the stuff he's been posting just recently. He posted this image of 3 people convicted of different crimes but got vastly different punishments. I think we've got the image ready to show you. Here we go. On the left, you've got someone Musk says made a racist comment, got 15 weeks jail. In the middle, someone who sold anti-immigration stickers and for that got 24 months in prison. And on the far right, someone who repeatedly raped a 12-year-old girl and got a 2-year suspended sentence doing 180 hours community service with no prison time, asking what the hell is going on. Have a listen to a BBC editor who slammed Elon Musk and said, what right does this guy have to speak to our Prime Minister?
It is extraordinary for the boss of a big US tech firm to be publicly confronting the British Prime Minister like this over home affairs issues. You know, it's difficult to imagine Apple's Tim Cook or Meta's Mark Zuckerberg doing something similar. And what we've seen Musk do is he hasn't directly incited violence. He didn't explode like we might see Donald Trump do, but he didn't call for calm either. And lots of people are saying that because he's so influential, that his actions are potentially quite dangerous. What he did, as we've just heard, is to echo arguments that we've seen from the far right, including claims that there's a 2-tier policing system in the UK and that immigrant criminals are treated less harshly.
Yeah, so the elites enact terrible policies and then blame anybody who notices. You can bet if Musk's views aligned with the BBC, there would have been no complaint at all.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand how insane this is, right? Not only are the UK politicians upset with Elon Musk because he doesn't want to censor more on the platform, but they're also upset with Elon Musk for chiming in and basically calling out the 2-tiered system of justice that he's alleging exists in the UK, where you have so-called hate speech crimes being punished more than actual real crimes like, assaults, right? And doing harm to young girls, okay? These types of crimes, violent crimes, should actually really be punished more harshly than so-called hate speech. But, in the UK, that's not their main concern, right? They're so concerned about so-called hate speech that police are scouring the internet to look for the so-called hate speech, and they may pull up to your residence and arrest you and send you to jail for saying things that the UK government doesn't approve of.
The offence of incitement to racial hatred involves publishing or distributing material which is insulting or abusive, which is intended to or likely to start racial hatred. So if you retweet that, then you're republishing that, and then potentially you're committing that offence. And we do have dedicated police officers who are scouring social media. Their job is to look for this material and then follow up with identification, arrests, and so forth. So it's a really, really serious. People might think they're not doing anything harmful. They are, and the consequences will be visited upon them.
Wow. Wow. Insanity. Absolute insanity. Again, it is unthinkable that this could happen in America, but I'm telling you guys, this is what you're going to get if you vote for somebody like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, because what the UK politicians are saying, okay, what the officials are saying doesn't really sound that much different than what the left says. Again, people like Tim Walz who don't believe in free speech, just like the UK doesn't believe in free speech.
I want to talk about what you just mentioned about misinformation, because oftentimes before, in previous political chapters, disinformation, telling people where to vote the wrong way, that was these were considered shenanigans. But it's becoming more ominous. Can you talk a little bit about that and what you will do to ensure that there are penalties for that?
Yeah, years ago, it was the little things, telling people to vote the day after the election. And, we kind of brushed them off. Now we know it's intimidation at the ballot box. Mm-hmm. It's undermining the idea that mail-in ballots aren't legal. I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy. Tell the truth where the voting places are, who can vote, who's able to be there. And watching some states continue to weaken the protections around the ballot, I think, is what inspiring us to lean into this.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that. That is Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's vice president, right? The folksy white guy, basically saying some very authoritarian things, saying, well, you don't have a free speech right to say things that we disagree with. Now, he's talking about election misinformation, disinformation, but we all know what that actually means. Anything that we disagree with that you say, you don't have a right to say it, because that is what they deem to be misinformation, disinformation. Misinformation, disinformation is not based off facts, because remember, they called the Hunter Biden laptop misinformation / disinformation from Russia, although, again, that laptop story was factually a real story. Like, that was a real thing. But they said it was misinformation, disinformation because it was inconvenient for Joe Biden, right? So we know what they categorize as so-called misinformation, disinformation. And again, it has nothing to do based off reality, right? It has everything to do with Democrats and the narrative that they want to push on the American people. If you disagree with them, they want to censor you, right? This is why Joe Biden has weaponized the government to strong arm these big tech platforms, just like the UK is trying to do right now, and to censoring speech that they don't like in the name of hate speech, right? Or misinformation, disinformation. Remember, they tried to set up the little disinformation board at the White House or within the government.
There's another new internet policy task force to deal with disinformation. This time it's being led by Vice President Kamala Harris. Tonight, our fact check team digging into the new program and exactly who it's supposed to protect.
We saw the creation and ultimate failure of the Disinformation Governance Board, and now a brand new task force to combat misinformation. I'm here tonight with Connor and Courtney from our fact check team. Courtney, we first start with you. You looked into this new task force. Tell us A little bit more about what you found tonight.
Yes, Ryan. Last week, the administration launched the White House task force to address online harassment and abuse. Their focus is on politicians, journalists, women, and the LGBTQ plus community. They want to increase overall support for survivors, expand research, improve prevention, and strengthen accountability for offenders.
So why is this task force being formed now?
Well, it really comes down to an uptick in online harassment. According to the Women's Media Center, between 25 and 40% of American adults say they've experienced online harassment, 57% of that number being women. And 64% of LGBTQ social media users reported experiencing online harassment and abuse as well.
Have you found in your research if this task force will really have any teeth behind their mission?
Well, we aren't sure, and it's going to take probably a while for things to move along. We do know that they have 6 months to submit a plan, so right now these would only be recommendations.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand, the same side of the aisle boohoo whining and crying about, and Project 2025 is going to take away all of your rights. These are the same people that are promoting individuals, again, like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who do not believe in the First Amendment, right? You can see it. Tim Walz already said, listen, you don't have the right to say things I disagree with, right? I'm going to deem it to be misinformation, disinformation, because it's a threat to our democracy, aka Democrat power and control. Kamala Harris was in charge of the censorship arm of the White House, right? She led the censorship arm of the White House. Again, this is what I'm telling you guys. This is how real demagogues come to power. Trump derangement is how dictators come to power. This is how our rights get eroded, because they say, look the other way. Don't pay attention to Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, right? They're amazing. They're great, okay? No. Orange Man is the person you need to worry about taking away your rights. Meanwhile, these are the individuals that are actually trying to take away your rights, okay? Also, these are the individuals that are pro-open border. So again, what happens if Kamala Harris is elected and Tim Walz and Kamala Harris open up the borders more so than they're already open now, because we know that's what they're going to do, okay? It's going to be full-blown amnesty. They're going to open up the border. If you come to the border, you say, hey, I'm seeking asylum. They're going to let you right in, right? You don't even have to say you're seeking asylum. They're just going to let you in anyways, right? Again, this is what's going to happen. I promise you. Well, what happens when the people speak out about that and say, hey, we don't like this. We don't agree with this? Well, what's going to happen is the same thing happened in the UK. Police are going to show up to your doorstep and they are going to arrest you because you said that, hey, I disagree with open borders. I don't think we should have mass illegal immigration into the country, right? If you disagree with that, again, this is what's going to happen. I'm telling you. I've said this time and time again on my channel. Look at what's happening in Europe if you want to know what's going to happen in the United States. What are you voting for when you vote for Democrats? Look at what's happening in Europe. That's what you're voting for. It's the honest to God truth, right? It's the honest to God truth. So, again, the UK, they don't have free speech rights over there. Okay, they have a negative right to free speech. I think that's technically what it is. Okay? The government, they determine what you can and can't say. They say, hey, we think this is hateful or disinformation or misinformation. We'll throw you in jail. We'll punish you more for saying things we disagree with than a violent criminal, right? This is what they're doing. And you are very naive to believe that that won't happen here in the United States under a Kamala Harris, Tim Walz administration. It will happen. This is what the Democrats want. This is what they want to be like. They want the United States to be just like Europe. This is what they want. Now, I don't want to be like Europe, right? I think that we're better than Europe, okay? No offense to all of the people watching in Europe. I know there's quite a bit of you guys, but I'm proud of America, okay? We broke it off from the English monarch for a reason, okay? We broke it off, okay? I think our ideals are superior, okay? The First Amendment, the Constitution. But this is what the Democrats desperately want. They want us to be like that, right? And you're already seeing the result of what happens when you're like that, right? When you let socialists run your country into the ground, right? You're seeing what is happening. So, hey, America has a choice, man. I just don't think that people are informed about the choice that they're making, okay? Because this is the job of the media, is not to inform you about the choices. okay, is to make you as uninformed as possible so that you make the wrong choice, and then we end up like the UK and the rest of Europe. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.